While Oklahoma State basketball should be celebrating the biggest win of the season, likely easily one of the top 10 biggest wins in the last 2 decades, it is instead being nationally overshadowed by the unfortunate actions of the very few.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, all of our Big 12 brethren, except for our BYU Cougs? Shout out to all the regulators, a.k.a. everydayers. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name's Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Get in on the action. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Get in the action with the best in the ticketing industry, Game Time Tickets. We get to side into this somewhat unfortunate conversation. Dear BYU Cougs, I implore you to not allow the actions of the few dictate your opinions on your loving brothers and sisters. Well, you're mostly loving brothers and sisters down at OSU. Now, last night, obviously, there were some things going back and forth. One thing is for certain, there's an exorbitant number of individuals sitting in the arena that heard different things. Now, seemingly the large majority heard the student section saying, refs a Mormon, right? But unfortunately, there was some people, and I've had the time to talk to some people sitting in the 300s courtside, a couple people in the first 2 rows of the student section, some people scattered throughout. And the common consensus seems to be it was kind of contingent upon where you were sitting, because it wasn't a large number of individuals that were participating in the F-word version of the chant. But nonetheless, this is a terrible look, because instead of talking about this win, instead of talking about how this could set us up for a massive game against Arizona, this is the national talking point. And, you know, even their coach talked about hearing it. And again, I would imagine that there just so happened to be a couple fans pretty close to the bench that were erring on that side. Listen, sipping whiskey is not exactly for everybody. Not everybody can, take a couple shots, drink a couple beers, and then hold their tongue. Not an excuse, right? But again, it's kind of like the same concept as like protest type of things. Protests are phenomenal. They're a way to exercise our rights and express our opinions. But what happens sometimes is you'll have a couple hundred protesters, and then you'll have 10, 12, 15 or so people that are breaking windows and busting into, buildings and things of that nature. Again, it's the actions of the few that make the entirety of the situation look bad. So it's seemingly you had a few hundred people yelling, refs a Mormon. But you did have some individuals that took advantage of that situation to slip in an F-bomb here or there. And again, it was slightly contingent upon where you were sitting. Like, there were some people I talked to in the 300s that heard completely different things, right, in the same section. So again, it was based on where you were sitting. Again, this is not an excuse. This is not an excusable offense, in my personal opinion. Was it Colorado? They got fined $50,000 for doing this. Now, there is a massive differentiation between the Oklahoma State scenario and the Colorado scenario. Again, I'm not trying to, die down the potential animosity brewing between Oklahoma State and BYU fans suddenly now. But at the same point in time, the reason this is completely unacceptable is because this national storyline. Again, if it was 500 people, 300 people, whatever, yelling refs a Mormon, and there's only 10, 12, 15, 20 people participating in the other version, it's all completely unnecessary. And I can only presume that the student section that came up with the refs a Mormon chant, like they probably thought they were being clever. They probably thought they were, kind of being cute by riding that line of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But again, this is an institute of higher education. We should have known better that if you start a chant that's even close to the chant that's completely unacceptable, there will be people in the building that utilize that moment to participate in chaos. So again, it wasn't clever. It's a terrible look. And I remember on this very show, and I think even on the squad show, when Colorado was fined $50,000, I said it wasn't enough because there was no confusion about that one. Like, it was very clear. You can hear the CK enunciation on the end of the words. It's a little different with the OSU scenario, but once again, we opened Pandora's box. That refs a Mormon chant allowed people in that building to, again, take this thing to a completely unnecessary level. And as I said in the show, the live show last night, I did the recording with the Locked On Arizona host, Leaf, which make sure you go check out. So for a solid hour of the game, I had the game on mute because I was recording a show. So I didn't hear a ton. I definitely didn't hear this stuff. So as I mentioned last night, I would be extremely disappointed if this were true, because when the Colorado situation happened, I was hooting and hollering about how, well, you're not going to have to worry about that, BYU country, when you come to Stillwater, America. We're not a university that does that type of thing, traditionally speaking. But, again, this is the downside of trying to be all cutesy-tootsy with words, right? The play on words kind of scenario. And it backfired because, once again, it's not a Oklahoma State beat the number 16 ranked team in America, even with a top 3 pick, dropping 36 points. That's not the conversation. This is the conversation. And it's just unfortunate, but it does accentuate the fact that it's completely unnecessary to even try to be cute, to even try to ride that line. Like, I don't get that part. Like, I don't understand why somebody's like, hey, let's say something so close that it causes a ton of controversy. And naturally, you do have a decent number, a significant number of Oklahoma State fans on social media doing a lot of damage control. All right, trying to say it never happened, and there needs to be retractions from the BYU coach and X, Y, and Z. But again, right, just talk to the people in the building. You'll likely hear that it was rarely sprinkled, but it was. And again, it's common sense. If you have almost 8,000 people in a building and a decent number of those individuals are 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids, right? Call it what it is. You're bound and determined to have some, outliers, to have some black sheep. So it should have never happened. That's my point. Even skirting that line of the refs a Mormon, you knew what you were doing. I mean, come on now. I get it. It was likely just an attempt to be clever and to do something that hasn't been done before. But it massively backfired, in my opinion. It doesn't matter the number. If it was 10 students, 20 students, 12 students, it's completely unnecessary. And those 10, 12, 15, whatever the number is that did engage, they would have never done that if the refs a Mormon chant never even happened. It's really sad that Steve Lutz team put together their best performance of the season, the best performance we've seen in a number of years. I know we beat Iowa State last year, and it did give us the opportunity to storm the court. So there are outliers, but we all know, by and large, the bulk of Cowboy basketball for the last 20 years has not been great. There's been a couple seasons here and there, right? We go back to the Marcus Smart, LeBron Nash, Markel Brown, Michael Cobbins squads, the Cade Cunningham team. But overall, the last 2 decades have been pretty bad. So for the BYU fans out there giving Oklahoma State country for storming the court, come on. We haven't had a lot of reasons. Like I said, this is probably easily one of the top 10 biggest wins in the last 15-ish years, close to 2 decades. So let us have our fun, but do hold those accountable for the unfortunate ridiculousness of that chant. Like, I don't get it, right? I didn't get it when Colorado did it, Oregon did it. I didn't actually understand why Cincinnati didn't get fined for it. And as I said last night, the fines need to be heftier. It used to be that the student section would self-police, right? The student section would handle their own business. And if people were a little bit too inebriated, they would help get them out of the building. If somebody was stepping over the line, they would kind of calm it down. And I did talk to a couple people that were, in the first couple rows close to the student section, that they, one of them did tell a couple people to knock it off, right? So again, it stinks that no matter how many people were jumping over into left field, it was bound to happen. Like, you're riding that fine line for no reason other than to be different, to be cute is, I don't know, about the only word I could think of that they were going for. But again, it sucks that this has taken place. And additionally, I will add, people don't take into consideration the effect that this does have on recruiting. Right? We've had some Oklahoma State football players that have, transferred to BYU. We've had Oklahoma State football players that have transferred from BYU to here. And it's pretty simplistic. If you even ask them, when those individuals go on their recruiting trips, that stuff is taken in consideration. There was some football players on hand in Gallagher-Iba for that felt some type of way about it. So that's another thing that isn't being mentioned. The student section needs to self-police. They need to tell their other fellow students that things like this can and will and have affected your ability to land recruits. Like, you don't even have to be of the LDS faith. There is, I would say, most Christians don't view that as okay or acceptable. So it may not be a determining factor in the end if they choose Oklahoma State or not, but it does matter. They do talk about it. And when they see it on visits, it's a little bit of a negative check mark more often than not. And that's problematic. So update your fellow students. We shouldn't operate that way. We've never operated that way previously. And instead of the team getting the flowers that they deserve, none of that's happening because it's being overshadowed by, again, a select few that decided they were going to jump over into the left field and take advantage of an opportunity. And that's going to happen. If you give some people an inch, they're going to take a mile. I mean, that's what happened. And it stinks. It stinks for Steve Lutz. It stinks for Anthony Roy, Victorious Miller, Kanye Clary, Jaylen Curry, Parsifal. It stinks for them because we should be talking about the game. We should be talking about beating one of the best players in the country while almost dropping 40 points. We should be talking about how cool and fun and welcomed the storming of the court was. But we're not able to do that. And that's just not fair. It's not fair to the players. It's not fair to the coaches. And it's certainly not fair to the recruits that were, in fact, on hand. Thankfully, most of them have already signed, all right? But there was some that weren't. And that could be problematic. Why welcome those problems when it's completely avoidable and absolutely unnecessary? It'll be slightly intriguing to see what the Big 12 does and how Chad Weiberg handles this situation. Because I would imagine Steve Lutz would definitely not be okay with it. Chad Weiberg, not going to be okay with it. So it just stinks that a few people, a handful of people, caused this viral national crap. This is not a good reason to be going viral for Orange and Black country. But nonetheless, it does raise the stakes now. It does kind of change the complexion of the next matchup with the BYU Cougs in Provo, Utah. Before we get to that, though, we got to check in on our friends at Mazda.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated Tennessee 96-66, turning a halftime tie into a historic win and avenging last season's loss by delivering the largest margin in the rivalry's history. AZ Fudd had 27 points and Sarah Strong added 26 as the Huskies remain perfect on the season, reminding everyone why they are the reigning national champions. In the Big Ten, number 2 UCLA rolled past number 8 Iowa 88-65, powered by 22 points from Angela Dukelich and a huge advantage in the paint, staking their claim as a national threat. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, we get to jump into segment 2 here. Like I said, the complexion of this game now, I think, has changed. And just like Big 12 country pretty much rides together, right? We'll typically go to war all day, every day for our Big 8 brethren. The Iowa States of the world, the Kansas States of the world will definitely, have their back. The 4 corner schools are basically no different. Like, most of them still have an affinity for the Pac-12. Most of them still kind of view themselves as, a little bit separated from the Big 12, not just geographically, but, potentially for a multitude of reasons. And now I think this game versus Arizona gets a little more tricky, right? As we talked with Leif on the show this morning, this could have been considered a trap game for them because of the murderer's row schedule of the next 5 or 6 games that they have. You got a bunch of ranked games, and then you have Oklahoma State kind of squeezed in the middle there, or towards the front end of that. It almost feels like a trap game, right? You heard that conversation from Leif this morning. I don't think so anymore. Not only because Oklahoma State won, dropped 99 points. I mean, that clearly is going to provide a little bit more excitement for them to dive deeper into film on Oklahoma State, because clearly when you put up 99 points against a top 20 ball club that has a certified bona fide lottery pick, it's a pretty big red flag for it not being a trap game anymore. And now I think that this is a little bit of added fire. Do Utah and BYU fans get along? No. Do Arizona and BYU fans get along? To my knowledge, yes. To my knowledge, that affinity for the Pac-12 is going to carry a little bit away. Again, is it going to be a determining factor, or at least a massive determining factor in the outcome of the ball game against Arizona? No, not necessarily. But we added unnecessary fuel. Right? In football terminology, this would be bulletin board material, locker room material. We've given that unnecessarily. So, again, if Arizona was going to be a trap game and Oklahoma State was going to potentially be able to exploit that, I think they're going to be a little bit more dialed in now. And if they were looking for a reason to have some semblance of frustration or irritation, animosity, call it what you want to call it, with Oklahoma State country, well, we just picked on their Big 12 buddies. And we joined the Oregons, the Colorados, the Cincinnatis of the world. So, yeah. And now this matchup against BYU, whenever we do go to Provo, Utah, it's going to be wild. It's going to be difficult. They're going to be out for blood. That place that reverberates a ton of craziness is now going to be even crazier. And it's, again, it stinks because of a handful of people, a couple handfuls of people are now getting lumped in with hundreds of people. Like the hundreds that were chanting something different are being lumped in with the handful that were participating in the ridiculousness. And that's a deflection from the Oklahoma State basketball team. That's a deflection from us even having a conversation about this ball game. What went right? What went wrong? Where do we improve? How we can get better? How we can take this and catapult it into the Arizona game to give ourselves an opportunity. Because before this BYU W, the outlook on beating Arizona was not only slim, but I think we were like a 21-point. They were a 21-point favorite. We were a 21-ish point dog. Naturally, that's going to change now with this win, but we're adding unnecessary fuel to the fire. And I can't for the life of me understand why anybody in the student section thought that would be a good idea and why 300, 400, 500 other people decided to jump in. Like, you just got to take it from a commonsensical perspective. It's always been this way. There's always been a handful, a couple outliers in any scenario that creates this level of trending. It's insane to me. So I don't speak for all of Cowboy country, but I want to apologize to the BYU Cougs because I swear, never in my life, not a day in my life, did I ever think that this would ever happen in Stillwater, America? Yeah. Tis what it is. Yeah. I'm almost at a loss for words. And you know that doesn't happen all that often. So we'll just go ahead and slide on in here to segment 3. It's time for you to get rocking and rolling on your hiring. And it's not just about finding somebody willing to fulfill a position. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the right move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and important locations. If you are hiring, you're not just going to want the next person who can fill a job. You're going to want someone with real experience who can jump in right away and help your business. That's what you're going to love about Indeed. You can get specific. You can target exactly what you need and what you're looking for. It's going to save time because you're spending less energy sorting through the mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a great fit. And here's the stat that says all of it. In the last minute that I've been hooting and hollering to you, companies just like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to the Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates that check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this very show will get $75 sponsored dollars and a sponsored job credit to help get your job premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That is Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you are hiring, do it the right way with Indeed because, yes, indeed, you do need it. Last but not least, it is time to get situated on your tickets. And Game Time is the industry's, top-notch supplier of these tickets. And there's not a lot like the NBA arenas. Gallagher-Iba is pretty close to the exact same thing. The crowd, the energy, the moments it provides. Getting tickets, though, yeah, that's not so simplistic. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with you, the fans. Pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you can have tickets locked in within minutes. You're going to love seeing the all-in price up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to view the seat before you purchase is a game changer. The zone deals are going to stand out. You choose the section, Game Time picks the seat, you get the savings. They have great last-minute options with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. So take the guesswork out of you buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That is code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. And remember, it's hard to excel at your ticket getting endeavor without Game Time tickets. All right, before we do slide on out of here, Cowboy Wrestling has been upgraded to ESPN. The mothership is going to air the Oklahoma State versus Iowa duel. And, perhaps we can thank Iowa State for that. I'm well aware, right? 141, 149, 157 were all coin flip ordeals that could have gone either way. And if they would have gone Iowa State's way, obviously the landscape, or at least the score of that duel, changes entirely. But that is not what happened. They got drugged through the mud, which is crazy because that team just recently beat Iowa. And if we recall, Iowa is our only loss of the season. I'm excited. I cannot wait, primarily because, half of the roster that was wrestling last time against Iowa are backups now. Not due to injury, for the most part. The Zach Ryder thing, popped up, obviously. There's been a couple other minor injuries here and there. But by and large, the Cowboys have a half new roster. And most of that half, or almost half, that is now doing more wrestling, they're the guys getting the bonus points. The dudes that we didn't anticipate being an integral part of the success for Oklahoma State are. And those dudes were not factored into the points situation a whole lot this season because they were behind guys like Richard Figueroa, former national champion. We have freshmen that are beating these guys out, and they're going on the mat and proving why. And now this game has been upgraded to ESPN. So did the Iowa State duel go the way it was supposed to? No. Is it sad because we need Iowa State to be really, really good? Yes. But it does kind of feel like because of that Iowa State win over Iowa, it raises the bar, or at least raises the craziness aspect of this duel. This is always a big one. This is a very contentious relationship. And now we get to see it on the primetime mothership ESPN. You can't get enough of it. The sport of wrestling is growing. This does tons in recruiting. We're going to continuously compete against Iowa and Penn State in recruiting every single year. So we need to have these head-to-head matchups. We need to be winning these head-to-head matchups. Dominating Nebraska, massively beneficial. Doing the same thing to Iowa State, that is huge. Doing it to Mizzou, traditionally, pretty huge. Now we just have to exact our early season revenge with a almost new roster against Iowa to close this thing out. Extremely exciting. You can't say enough about what David Taylor's built. Now we just need to get Penn State on the schedule. That'll be a fun one. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, subscribe. All my podcasts and people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Go leave some reviews. All right, y'all. Later, taters.